Welcome.
Good morning.
Welcome to Belgrade Online,
An online ministry of Belgrade Avenue United Methodist Church.
Welcome to Belgrade Online. I'm Dan, the video editor of Belgrade Online. It's a new year, and once again, Belgrade Online will be making some changes. Our world is ever changing, and we want to keep things fresh here at Belgrade Online. So be watching for some changes in the coming weeks. And now, without further ado, here are this week's announcements, followed by Dan's sermon and some music to brighten your day. Thanks again for watching Belgrade Online.
Hello, Belgrade family. On May 21st at 9 o'clock, the outreach team is sponsoring a brunch in the Fellowship Hall. We invite all of you to join us before church. Your goodwill offering will go to support UMCOR's U.S. disaster response programs. We'll have information about those programs and also provide information about early response team training. We hope to see you all there, again, May 21st at 9 o'clock before church. Thank you. Have a good day.
Today is the last day of the school year for our kids' church on Sundays. So during the summer, we don't have kids' church on Sunday mornings, and so we can bring them in here with us. So this is the last day of the school year. For that, Kent's not in here. I was going to have him stand up and have us all clap. So if you see Kent calm, Kent has been he volunteered to single-handedly prepare curriculum and work to make sure our kids are discipled every week and have their own fun church experience up there, and has done an absolutely phenomenal job. And I am so proud to have been doing ministry with him. And when you see Kent, give him a hug, give him a good job, give him a thank you for all your hard work, because he has sacrificed so much to be able to be there for our kids this year. So he's not in here, but Wendy's in here, and so on behalf, we'll give a hand clap for Kent, because, yeah. There's a lot of churches that don't put a lot of emphasis on kids and things like that, but, kids are the future of everything, really. And so it's so important. And so just make sure you show Ken how much we appreciate him for all of his hard work. And so that's today. Now, this summer, I've been starting to announce this summer, we are doing a joint vacation Bible school for kids. We're going to be joining with Crossview Covenant Church, and we're going to be doing from August 7th to 10th. We're going to be doing VBS with them. It's a Monday through a Thursday, and it'll be in the mornings from 9 to 11:30 a.m. We are looking for some volunteers to help out, because we're going to do it together. I'm hoping to send anywhere from 10 to 15 volunteers if we can get a few people to help out. And here's what they need. We're looking for people to basically just hang out with the kids is one thing you could do. Be a group leader. A group leader isn't somebody, you don't have to teach, you don't have to lead anything. You just got to be there and build relationships and get to know the kids in your group. And you'll be with that group all week. And you'll be having the schedule and just bringing your kids to the different stations and the scheduled activities that week. The second thing is that you could sign up to be a teacher, because each station will have their own teachers or activity leader for that activity. And they're looking for people to teach lessons and people to do crafts and that's things like that. And then they're also looking for people to maybe help decorate, or maybe people to help set up. They'll be setting up for that after church at Crossview on Sunday, August 6th. So they need help with that. But then also, if you like to cook or like to bake, they need help baking goodies and treats for kids for their treat time. That's something you could do. And that wouldn't require being there that week for the whole time, but that's one thing. And So there's lots of different ways you can volunteer. So I encourage you to think about it and let us know, let me know. You can shoot me a text message. You can email me, email the office. Let us know. Strongly consider helping out that week. It'll be a really fun time. Pastor Brad Jackson at Crossview and myself, we've got some fun things in the works that we're going to be doing. And kids love making fun of the pastors. So we're going to have a good time. We're going to give them the fun there. So August 7th to 10th, joint VBS. We encourage you to help out with that. Next kind of fun thing that we got, I want to start announcing it now, is that it's just about halfway through 2023 here, coming up in a little over a month. And it's been a few years since we've done a church directory for Belgrade. So we're going to do a new 2023 church directory this year. What's going to happen is that somebody from the company that bought out Life Touch is going to be coming out and taking pictures in September. They'll come out and they'll take pictures, and everyone's going to get a free directory. And then if you want to purchase the pictures that they take from there, that you can definitely do that as well through them. Oh, and a free 8x10. That's coming up in September, and I'll have solidified dates for you coming up. But I just wanted to kind of put the bug in your ear, and in September we'll be starting to take photos for our 2023 church directory. And my hope is to have that out to you so everybody has the directory kind of somewhere between Thanksgiving and before Christmas. So kind of a, early Belgrade Christmas gift, I guess. And my goal this year also, my second goal, is that, in the past, the directories have had some blank pictures where there's no picture there. There's family information, but no picture. I would love to have a picture in every single slot for every single family. And when the time comes to get the pictures taken, they'll have a photographer out here for 3 or 4 days. They can also come out further than that. But if you can't make the time slots when we do post them, I can also come out and take your photo as well. And so, or you can come in at a different time and we can do that and submit photos also. But that's going to be coming up in September. And now the last thing I've got to announce is in the beginning of July, we've got fun days coming up. And so we're looking for about 10 to 20 volunteers in fun days. And there's 2 ways we can volunteer. One thing is the Fun Days Parade in general is looking for people to help kind of be an extra set of eyes and pass out candy if there's a lag in floats in our area here. So that's one thing. And we'll have a bit more information about that. Then the other thing is that we'd love to do our hot dog stand, hot dog chip soda stand, water stand that we have out in the corner. We weren't able to do it last year, and I had so many people come up to me and say, "Oh, is there no hot dog stand? Oh, we look forward to that. That's our lunch every year." We'd love to be able to have that this year, but we got to staff it, and it takes about 10 to 15 people to staff that. If you'd be interested in helping with, cooking hot dogs, serving chips, taking money, running the cash register, that kind of thing, we'd love if you consider that. We'll have sign-up sheets coming up here in the next couple weeks, but I wanted to get that out there. Get the bug in your ear for that as well. So a lot of Save the Mindset Space announcements here. So a lot of ways we can help out and be able to bless our community. Hey, good morning, everyone. Pastor Dan here, and happy Mother's Day to all you moms this morning. We love you and we appreciate you, and we celebrate you so much for all you are and all you do. We love you. We love you from Belgrade Church. Happy Mother's Day, y'all. Well, this morning we're continuing our series called How Love Works, Keys to Successful and Fulfilling Relationships. And we've been talking about the idea that, the number one thing that God says that'll characterize us as his followers is that we love one another. Not anything else. Not what we choose to stand up for, not any of our opinions or political opinions, even worse, or anything like that. It's how well we love one another. It's love, but it's the kind of love that gives. Now, so we've talked a little bit about the fact that every one of us has a bit of a different way that we give and receive love. It's almost as if we have different languages or love languages. We've been talking about some different love languages that we all have. And we've talked about words of affirmation. Some of us give and receive love via words, hearing words of affirmation. And some of us, last week we talked about the idea that some of us give and receive love by representing that love with a tangible token, or you could say gifts, that every culture has some form of honoring others through gift giving and gift receiving. Well, this Sunday, today, we are talking about another kind of language of love, or love language. And this one is kind of one that undergirds all other love languages. And I hope that it is helpful to you. So watch on, and I hope it's helpful. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Once again, happy Mother's Day, and we'll see you soon. Grace and peace, y'all. Well, there's a story about a couple named Janet and Bill. And Janet and Bill lived in a kind of a cluster home with a white picket fence, perfect lawn, beautiful green grass, lovely spring flowers in full bloom, very idyllic home. It was idyllic outside, that is. Inside, however, is where their idealism for their home ended. Their marriage was in shambles. 12 years, 2 children after the wedding day. They kind of wondered why they'd even married in the first place. And they seemed to disagree on everything. The only thing they didn't disagree on, that they agreed on, was the fact that they both deeply loved their children. They loved their kids. And as their story unraveled, it seemed as though Bill was a workaholic who had little time left over for Janet. And Janet worked part-time, mainly just to get out of the house. And so their method of coping with their struggles was just withdrawal. They just withdraw with one another. So they tried to put distance between each other, between themselves, so that their conflicts wouldn't really seem as big as they were. But the gauge of both of their love tanks was completely empty. And so they had gone to marriage counseling at one time, but didn't seem to make much progress. So they began to meet with a different counselor, and they started talking about these concepts of the 5 love languages. And the counselor noticed that even though their marriage was tough, that there were still things that they deeply appreciated about each other. One of the things Bill said was, Janet is a fantastic mother. She loves being a homemaker. She's a good housekeeper. She's an excellent cook when she wants to cook. And but he continued, there's just simply no affection coming from her. He says, I work my butt off, but there's simply no appreciation, were his exact words. Now, on Janet's side of things, she agreed Bill was an excellent provider, but she complained, he doesn't do anything around the house to help me, and he's never had any time from me. What's the use of having the house? What's the use of having a recreational vehicle and all the other things if we don't get to enjoy them together? And so this counselor decided to focus the advice by making only one suggestion to each of them. And so Bill and Janet were told separately that each one held the key to changing the kind of the emotional climate of their marriage. Each one of them had the key. And so he told them the key is to express verbal appreciation for the other person. And so for the moment, suspend any complaints that you have about them. Suspend any complaints of things you don't like about them. No matter how long the list is, just suspend them for a moment. And I want you to think about the many things you do appreciate and start writing them down. So they each individually, he's meeting with each of them, and they made long lists and of things they appreciate about one another. And then he encouraged them to keep adding to those lists as the days went on. Well, after this session, the couple kind of went radio silent for a while. And 2 months later, they found themselves back in the counselor's office. And so the counselor split the session up by speaking to each of them individually, one by one, alone. And he found that Bill's attitude had taken this huge, giant step forward. He guessed Bill guessed that the counselor had given Janet the same advice as him, to write down all the things you like about the one another and express them. And he loved it. He wasn't irritated about that at all. He loved it that they're both given the same advice. And Janet was expressing appreciation for his hard work and his provision and how his provision for their family. He said, she's actually made me feel like a man again. We've got a ways to go, but I really believe we're on the road. Until he met with Janet. Janet, however, only took one tiny little baby step forward. She said, well, things have improved some. He's given me verbal compliments like you've suggested, but I guess he's sincere. He seems sincere, but he's still not around much. He's still so busy at work, we just never see each other. And the counselor realized in that moment that the advice that he was giving them was only speaking to one love language. That words of affirmation were Bill's love language. He was a hard worker. He enjoyed his work. He wanted the most he wanted the most for his wife and sought appreciation for his hard work. But however, Janet's love language was something else. She saw positive words as fine, but her longing was for something else. Her love tank wasn't filled by words. She was crying out for quality time with her husband. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about quality time and what that means. But first I want to show you a little bit from Scripture. In Luke chapter 19, we see a story of Jesus. And Jesus is out on the road. He's walking, and he enters this village called Jericho. And he's passing through, and he sees this man whom we've all know the story, whose name is Zacchaeus. And so in Luke 19, he says this. He says, "A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he couldn't see over the crowd. So he ran ahead, climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, and since Jesus was coming that way." But so here's the deal. It says when Jesus reached the spot, he looked up at Zacchaeus and says, "Hey, Zacchaeus, come on down. Come on down immediately." I'm thinking of The Price is Right. Come on down, Zacchaeus. So he says, "I'm going to stay at your house today." Now, that seems kind of presumptuous to us in our culture. Oh, you're just going to invite yourself over to my house. You know what I mean? Oh, is that how this is going to go? But in that culture, if a passing rabbi who was a big deal came around and they said, "I'm going to hang out at your house today," that was like a huge honor, huge honor. So he says, "I must stay at your house today, Zacchaeus." And so Zacchaeus came down and welcomed him gladly. And all the people began to mutter, "He's gone to be the guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Okay, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I've cheated anybody out of anything, I'll pay back 4 times the amount." And Jesus says, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost." Now, the thing that's interesting about this is this shows us a couple things about God. The first thing, it shows that God seeks people out to spend time with. God is the God of quality time. He possesses all love languages. He can communicate in all love languages because he's the source of love itself. He's just like, in the early scriptures of our Bible, it says in Genesis that God created male and female both in his image. So like both male and female are both aspects of God. God isn't male or female. God is God, and we are just kind of aspects of God, male and female, according to the scriptures. And in the same way, God can speak in any love language because they're all different aspects of one thing. They're all different branches of the trunk of love. They're just different expressions of it. So God is all these things. But God's a quality time God. That's the first thing. But the second thing that this verse tells us is that a lot of times we put conditions on who God can welcome or allow himself to be welcomed into the life of. Notice that they all noticed that Zacchaeus was a quote-unquote sinner, which is that phrase has so much baggage. It just means we're not perfect. Perfect. Wonderful. But the idea is that we all fall short of God's perfection. But notice, Zacchaeus did something about that, but Jesus decided to come and spend time with Zacchaeus before Zacchaeus acknowledged that. See, we tend to think that we need to get our lives right before God comes and spends his love and his life with us. But in this scripture, God comes to us first. See, it doesn't matter where we are in our life or what we think we've done or how horrible, this was a tax collector that literally stole from the pockets of poor people and made himself rich. Think of like the worst politician in the world that does these kinds of things. God, and most of us aren't that bad, if we want to look at it as a continuum, right? But the thing about it is that God comes to us before we have any acknowledgement of or life change or transformation. We don't have to be perfect before God seeks to spend time with us. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. But so God's a God of quality time, and we don't have to be perfect to receive that quality time. But see, here's a couple other verses that talk about this, so much shorter ones. In Mark chapter 3, verse 13 and 14, it says this. It says, Jesus went up on a mountainside and called to him those who he wanted. This is to be his leaders. This is when he calls the original 12 apostles. And they came to him. And here's what their original charge was. It says, he appointed 12 that they might first, everybody say it, be with him. Everybody say, that they might be with him. That they might be with him. Let's say, be with him one more time. Be with him. There we go. Now we're getting some participation. And then that he might send them out to preach. One of my mentors told me one time, a long time ago, that if you're really doing ministry for God, you're going to be doing ministry with God. God asks even the disciples, the first thing that we're to do is to be with him, and then any service with God after that. But first is the quality time. Mark chapter 6, verse 31 and 32. It says, so many people were coming and going to see Jesus, and some didn't even have a chance to eat. So Jesus said to the disciples, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. So one of the ways that Jesus noticed that their tanks are empty, and one of the things he did to fill them was to spend quality time with them. He invited them to come with him and be with him. God is a God of quality time. And then Revelation chapter 21, verse 3. The very end of all things, it says, and I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, look, God's dwelling place is now among people, and God will dwell, everybody say it, with them. And they will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. God's a God of quality time. God's a God of spending time with his people. And then in the book of Exodus, we won't put it up on the screen because it's a bit long, but we know the story of God calling Moses up on the mountain. And in Exodus 24:18, it says Moses entered this cloud up on the mountain, and he stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. So one of the first stories we have of God revealing himself to somebody is spent in this long stint of quality time. And then finally, Luke chapter 5, verse 16. It says, Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. All of this quality time, Jesus drew from spending quality time with his heavenly Father. Quality time is kind of an undergirding of sorts. It's who God is. What is quality time? The love language of quality time, it can be more difficult to sort of speak than the words of affirmation or physical touch or gifts or something, because it costs us something in our culture that we don't think we have enough of. Gifts, you don't need money to gifts. You can make a gift, you can do this, you can do that, you can find a gift, you can grow a gift, you can make a gift. But time, we all think we're short on time. And spending time on somebody that we love is a costly currency to many of us. But not just time, quality time, undivided attention. This love language could be like sitting and facing somebody, taking a walk with one another, doing some activity together where it's not really about the activity, it's more about togetherness. See, so many of us are starved for attention, starved for time with another human being. 20 minutes of undivided attention is 20 minutes of life that you can't get back. That's costly love. This is powerful in the currency of love. So what kind of time together equals quality time? What is this going to mean? Different things for different relationships. For you and your spouse, if your spouse is a quality time person, what does that mean for your spouse? What communicates love? What communicates quality time in a loving way to them? If you're a quality time person, what kind of quality time really fills your love tank? What kind of quality time puts deposits in your validation bank, your love bank? Think about your spouse, maybe your kids, maybe your parents, your grandkids, coworkers, your best friend. What kind of time equals quality time to them, to you? It's a different answer for many of us, you know. What I can answer is what isn't quality time. What isn't quality time is anything that is distracting when you're with another person. That's distracting you from locking in with the other person. Here's some data and statistics on why love language of quality time is important. There's some research done by the Gottman Institute, and it says that spending quality time together is one of the key indicators of a strong and healthy relationship. Now, we're not just talking about love relationships. This is any relationship, friendship. Quality time. In a survey of over 2,000 people, 4,000 people, those who reported spending more time together were more likely to report higher levels of relationship satisfaction. Simple, makes sense. But what about mental health? Studies have also shown that spending quality time with loved ones can have a positive impact on our mental health. One study found that spending time with friends and family can significantly reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety, which is an absolute epidemic in our culture, in our part of the world right now, in Western cultures. Quality time is particularly important to parent-child relationships. Research shows that children who spend more quality time with their parents tend to have better academic outcomes in school, better mental health, and better social skills. Quality time with parents. Spending quality time with loved ones may also have physical health benefits. One study found that adults who reported spending more time with friends and family had a lower risk of premature death over a 5-year long period. Cultural significance. The importance of quality time is recognized across all cultures. And when I was kind of looking at some of this, specifically researching this, I found that in Japanese cultures, they have a term for this, a couple terms. I'm gonna do my best. I tried to figure out how to pronounce this. I don't know anything about Japanese, but the Japanese, there's two words. The first is ikigai. Ikigai. And it basically means a reason for being, or a reason to get up in the morning. It's associated with feelings of happiness and fulfillment and purpose. And it's connected with this term, amae. I really am positive that's probably not how you pronounce that, but M-I-A, A-M-A-E. It's a term that's unique to Japanese language, and it's a term that, at its core, it describes feelings of intimacy and closeness and dependency that exist between people in a relationship. So these terms, one is like this, it's like this mojo that exists between friendships and love relationships, but it's connected with this term ikigai, which means the reason for being. And this connection that we have with other humans is literally the reason to get up in the morning. Those are these terms in Japanese culture. I think it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And so these terms are usually meant to describe care, the need for care and affection from others. And when I was researching this, I found that it was in stark contrast to Western cultures, because we have this concept of individualism and self-reliance. We do it ourselves. We pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We're self-made man, self-made woman. We're individuals. We're strong. That equals strength in our culture. But in Eastern cultures, that equals weakness, because there's no way one person can be as strong as a community. And Eastern cultures know this, and they do it well. And us Western people, we really are terrible at this. And our lives right now are showing in our culture why that is ridiculous, why individualism can only go so far. We need each other. And our individualism, our lack of really being together in quality ways has resulted in mass anxiety, mass depression, to the point where we can't even, like a lot of times we can't even handle the slightest bit of failure, the slightest bit of critique. And it cuts us down. And that's not a dig on anybody individually. That's a result of our culture being so focused on ourselves as individuals. But see, in Japanese culture, we have to according to this principle of Ikigai and MIA, we lean into one another and we rely on each other, and we can't do that without this idea of quality time. And this is true, like I said, this is true from the ground up. Because when it comes to children, there's kids who's kind of have a love language of quality time, and there's kids that don't. But regardless of whether kids, and when we were kids, and our kids, and our grandkids, or whoever, from the time we're young, no matter if our love language is quality time or not, we all have this need for time and attention from those who would be our primary source of love, our caregivers. I've always been reading little quotes from kids every week, and here's some more. Little girl Bethany, she's 8 years old, says she has a twinkle in her eye most of the time. And they asked her, "How do you know your parents love you?" And she says, "Because they do things with me. Sometimes we all do stuff together, even with my little brother who's smelly. But both of them do things also just with me." When asked what sorts of things, she said, "Well, my daddy took me fishing last week. I don't know if I like fishing, but I like being with daddy." And they said, "What about your mom?" And she said, I went to the 200 the day after my birthday." She said, "What's that?" It's like a zoo. My favorite place was the monkey house. We watched one eat a banana. It was fun. Jeremy, 12 years old, says, "Jeremy, how do you know your dad loves you?" "Because he spends time with me. We do lots of things together. He has season tickets to football games, and we never miss them. I know my mom loves me too, but we don't spend much time together because she doesn't really feel well all the time." 10-year-old Frankie, "How do you know your parents love you?" He said, "Well, my mom loves me. She comes to my soccer games, and we go out to eat afterwards." And said, "What about your dad?" "Well, I don't know if my dad loves me." "Well, why not?" "Well, he said he did, but he left us, and I don't ever see him." Mandy, 16 years old, says, "How do I know my parents love me? Mainly because they're always here for me. I can discuss anything with them. I know they'll be understanding and try to help me make good decisions, but I'm going to miss them when I go to college, but I know they'll still be there for me." See, even kids, even teenagers have this, you say, "No, my teenager don't want to spend time with me." Yeah, they do. They really do. Not all the time, but there's still a need there. You know, there was a group of researchers at the University of Kansas that did this study on the impact of family meals on kids and children. Now, if you don't do a lot of family meals, don't feel shamed at all by this, because we don't do family meals a whole lot. We don't have time, but we do quality time in other ways. This is just an example of quality time. It says over the course of a decade, they tracked more than 150 families and collected data on their eating habits, family dynamics, and overall well-being. The results show that family who ate meals together regularly had children who were more resilient, had better academic performance, and were less likely to have behavioral problems. They also had stronger relationships with one another and were more likely to have positive interactions throughout their own days. And it wasn't the eating. It was the fact that that was one time where they had undivided attention to one another. Psychiatrist Ross Campbell said this: "Without focused attention, kids and teenagers experience increased anxiety, because they will feel that everything is more important than they are. They're consequently less secure and become impaired in their emotional and psychological growth. Simply because quality time. And so teenagers and kids do better in their normal challenges of development if their parents are involved in their normal flow of life, if their grandparents are involved in their normal form of life, if people that are important to them, whoever that is, are involved in their normal flow of life. When a survey of 5,000 adults was done, they asked, what did you least appreciate from your parents when you were a teenager? The number one response was, they weren't involved in my life. So there's so many things that we can gain from this stuff. And that's just, and see, you're talking about a lot about kids and teens. Listen, that's all of us at one point. And if we never had that need met, if that's our love language and we never had that need met, how many problems can we be experiencing now simply because all we need is quality time with people we care about? See, when all is falling apart in our relationships, if our love language is quality time, we need to learn how to verbalize that and ask for that in healthy ways, not shaming ways. But if the other person's language is quality time, there's no way around it. We're going to have to learn to clear important things off our schedule and make time for that person with undivided attention. Not talking while the TV's on or reading while we're reading the newspaper or something. Undivided attention. And we all know what the number one enemy of quality time is right now. No shame. I'm literally preaching with it in my pocket. Granted, I normally don't do that. I put it in here for this so I could hold it up and do this thing here. But the point is that this is the number one enemy of our quality time nowadays. Why? Because it takes effort to have quality time, even if it's your love language. It takes no effort to sit here and do this. It takes even less effort it takes less effort than spending quality time with the person in the room with you. It takes less effort to text somebody than it is to be present with who's right in front of you right there. I had a friend who was a communications major 20 years ago, before cell phones really blew up. They were getting big at that time, but nothing like now. They didn't have internet on them yet or anything like that. And I was like, what's the most interesting thing you learned in your degree? He's like, well, the telephone. He's like, people will interrupt their dinner together when they're eating to run and grab the telephone. I gotta get the phone, oh my gosh. Oh, I missed it, That's when we all had just a phone in, across the room in every room, Now we have them in our pocket. How much more is it now? But see, we gotta learn to make time for those that we love. We have goals. But do we want our loved ones to be there with us when we reach them? Make the time. I read this the other day. Every person, every day, everyone who draws breath on this earth receives the same amount of time in a day. We all have the same 24 hours. 1,440 minutes. 86,400 seconds. And at the end of every day, all of our time bank is depleted. Time can't be rolled over into the next day, can't be stockpiled. When it's gone, it's gone. But we all have the same amount. Some people can do an incredibly large amount in that time, yet do very little. Some people can do so much, yet connect so little in that amount of time. How do we do this thing called quality time? And that's the question. If we're talking about marriages, if you're married to a native quality time speaker, then you should feel at least a little bit flattered, because your spouse isn't looking for words or gifts or service from you. She just wants you. He just wants you. They will experience love and affection. They'll feel genuinely cared for simply by sharing your time and attention. That's it. Half hour here, an hour there, a weekend occasion is enough time to keep the love tank filled. And it's about building a sense of togetherness. And it doesn't have to be spending hours together gazing into one another's eyes. It just means doing something together where we're giving our full time and attention to one another. And what this looks like is extremely personalized to every specific relationship we have. Each parent will be different. Each grandparent will be different. Even each grandkid will be different. Each child will be different. Each friend will be different. Your spouse will most likely be different than you. We have to build a sense of togetherness to connect. Rolling the ball with the kid could be connecting. My son Charlie, when he was little, rolling the ball connects with him. He loves being tickled. He could be having a terrible day. One of his first phrases was like, all of a sudden we were playing one day and he just goes, "Daddy, tickle me." I was like, what? He just spoke. It was one of the first things he said. My oldest is an extreme quality time, but the type of quality time is talking about things that she's interested about before bed for an hour. Learn how to do it. And it's not about the activity. It's about what's happening on the emotional level. My dad took me fishing maybe twice when I was a kid. I don't like fishing. I'm not a big fishing guy. The other day, or a couple weeks ago, my daughter Hannah said, "We're having a field trip in a couple weeks where we're going to do fishing at school." I'm like, "Oh, go." But she really wanted me to chaperone. So I took the day off work this past Friday, and I did the fishing field trip with her at Spring Lake Park in the pouring rain all day long. And I hate fishing, but I had a great time though. I was looking forward to it. I didn't have time. I had so much going on. I knew I was going to have to sacrifice some of my Saturday to get my work done for today to finish it off because I had a busy week and everything. But I took the time and I did it, and I had a blast. I loved it. We took so many pictures together, and we have now some memories that will last forever. And that's the biggest thing. As I'm closing, I want you to know that when you're spending quality time, what you're doing is you're creating a bank of memories that can't ever be snuffed out. Even someday, when people that deal with dementia and Alzheimer's still remember some of the most powerful memories when they were kids. I want to close with this. Again, I'm not a big fishing fan, but many of you may have heard this song. It's a country song called "Just Fishin'" by Trace Adkins. It's a story about him and his daughter. He says, I'm lost in her, there holding that pink rod and reel. She's doing almost everything but sitting still. She's talking about her ballet shoes and her training wheels and her kittens. And she thinks we're just fishing. I say, "Daddy loves you, baby," one more time. She says, "I know, I think I got a bite." And all this laughing and crying and smiling and dying here on the inside is what I call living. And she thinks we're just fishing on the riverside, drowning worms and killing time. Nothing too ambitious. She ain't even thinking about what's really going on right now, but I guarantee this memory is a biggin. Don't you love country terms? It's a biggin. And she thinks we're just fishing. She's already pretty like her mama is. Going to drive the boys crazy, going to give her daddy fits. And I better do this every chance I get because time's ticking, and she thinks we're just fishing on the riverside. She's not even thinking about what's really going on. I guarantee this memory's a biggin, and she thinks we're just fishing. She thinks we're just fishing. Psychiatrist said this: without focused attention, every person from the ground up will experience more anxiety because, like I said before, everything will seem more important than they are. Quality time is the love language that undergirds all the other love languages, because every love language will take some of your time that you will not get back. But if you choose to spend that time on those that you love, not flippantly, but really give yourself to it, be focused, give them attention, look them in the eyes, don't interrupt them. If you are absolutely not into what they're talking about, learn about it before. And I guarantee it'll be more meaningful to you. And when it becomes a little bit more meaningful to you, it'll be so meaningful to them. Quality time is time that we cannot get back. But we will be banking memories for the rest of our lives. And even though we can't get our time back, those memories will continually pay us into the great beyond. So I want to encourage you to ask yourself the question, how does the person I'm loving, whether it be a spouse, a friend, a parent, grandparent, grandkid, whoever, coworker, how is this relationship, how can I love them by giving them quality time? What does quality time mean to them? You can ask yourself, what does quality time mean to me? And then learn to communicate that one another in healthy ways. If we do that, I guarantee your relationship, your friendships will grow and be so much more strong and powerful and meaningful. And you will have so many holy moments and memories to last you. Let's pray. God, we thank you for this gift of each other. Help us to learn the language of quality time for those of us that aren't proficient in that language, so to speak. Help us to learn how to spend time with one another in ways that are focused and quality, and in ways that communicate to the other person love. Help us to express what we need from those that we love, to communicate to them when we need quality time and what that means to us. God, I pray that they'd have conversations, that we'd all have conversations this week that talk about what means quality time for each one of us. And I pray that as we do that, we would act on it and carry that out and find creative ways to have time with one another that is quality. And we know in doing that, we're learning to love each other well, and we're fulfilling your great commandment that says love one another. Fulfilling the entire law, learning what it really means to be your disciple according to your words is to learn to love one another well. Help us to do that this week through quality time. In your name. Amen.
I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Belgrade Online. If it was life-giving and encouraging to you, please let us know by visiting our giving page at baumc.org/give. Thanks again for watching and have a blessed week.